Hi, and welcome to Tremco Live, where we're socially distant but technically connected. I am Marcy Tyler, the Director of Building Science for Tremco Commercial Sealants and Waterproofing. And I'm so happy to be joined by my co-host every week.
And I'm Paul Hugenboom, and I'm the President of the Tremco Construction Products Group, Marcy, a fine collection of companies and brands all over the world.
All over the world. It's always very exciting, and I'm so appreciative for the opportunity to be able to sit here with Paul and to be able to broadcast this information on Fridays. We like to say, wind down your Fridays with us with some light information.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say wind down, and we do aspire to.
We do aspire to wind down at some point, and I know a lot of you like to get the recording later on. You're on a job site right now, and you sit down with your favorite beverage. So send us what that favorite beverage is. I'd love to hear about it at some point. So today and this whole month, we're pretty excited because we're talking about glazing. We've got some great videos that you can find on our website all about glazing. And one of my favorite ones that I did mention last week as well was, it's like, what do you see and what do you think of when you think of glazing? Because it's, what is it? Like Dante did a presentation in Chile and he goes, it's not donuts.
That was good.
Was that what you're going to say? You think the same way as Dante?
No matter how long I'm at Tremco, that's still my first answer.
Exactly. Yes, so we always like to kind of start off with some of that information or something light, but it's anything related to that window or that fenestration. So it could be gaskets, it could be glass, it could be metal, or it could be the transition from the window to the wall when we think of glazing. So like I mentioned, lots of great videos on that, and one of them is about what do you see, and I love how the video ends because it goes through a series of things that you may be seeing on your job sites, issues with sealants, gaskets, coatings, all related to that glazing unit, that window fenestration connection. And then I love how it ends because it says, what does Tremco see? Your partner in performance is essentially how that video goes. So that's very cool. So as always, we like to share some information via some slides for everybody today. So we've got a few that we prepared here. Love all of our new branding. As Paul mentioned, we represent all of those brands, those systems, those products, and the people. So each week we're going to keep on bringing on people, our customers, our colleagues, and really highlight those feet on the street that Paul likes to always say. So particularly today, we're talking about Proglaze ETA, an engineered transition assembly. So this product is really, I believe, pretty amazing. When I started with Tremco in the 90s. I came back in 2007. And we'd already launched this product. It was well underway, and I had not known of it beforehand, right? And I was just amazed at the versatility of this product and its ability to connect dissimilar surfaces because it has that elongation. Yeah,
would you say if we were to simplify it at 50,000 feet, it's the ability to bridge dissimilar systems?
Exactly.
And of course, across a wide range of openings. That's the other thing that always amazes me.
Oh yeah.
And of course, the pressure testing, I'm always blown away by.
Blown away.
Literally.
Yes. Well, and I think that's what's incredible. And I think when we look at different types of connections or even testing, we love to test it to failure. So you'll see in the videos, if you go on to our Tremco YouTube channel and look up some of these videos, we like to take it to see where it is failing.
I don't think I've ever seen it ruptured.
Well, there is a video that it shows it. And yeah, but it's because we took it to like a ridiculous mile per hour where your building's on the ground, right? And it wasn't, what was so interesting was it wasn't the connection of the membrane to itself. It wasn't the connection to the substrates. It just stretched so far beyond its ability to stretch and it broke. But once again, it was way beyond anything that you would normally have your building react to.
That's a key message. We do like to test to failure, and that means literally to failure. And sometimes that's a little exciting.
It is. It is. So when you think of connections on your building, this is one of those solutions for you. It's a pre-cured silicone extrusion. It has ribs on either one side or the other, depending on how you're going to install it. It's got a lot of great features and benefits associated with it. You can see those critical connections listed there on that slide: the window to wall, roof to wall, foundation to wall, corners, penetrations, drift joints, and floor deflections. All those represent areas in your buildings, those touch points in your buildings, those bullseyes in your buildings where you could have potential issues, and this can come in and solve that.
Yeah. And we like to say, we love our sealants, but this is really a great complement to our sealants.
Yep. Exactly. So it is bonded to either side of your transition area, to the substrates, to the glass, to the glazing, whatever it is that your application is with sealant. But because it's bridging those two different areas, it really gives that flexibility and that ability to bridge across. What's great is, since this product has been around for over 10 years now, we've really grown within the product portfolio as well, as we always do. So as we speak to customers and as we're on projects with customers, we really have been able to evolve its capability to really meet those challenges on projects. Here is some pictures and some illustrations of how we have inside and outside corners. We have a variety of different systems, systems 1, 2, and 3, and then a variety of different connections that really help make that transition in your building enclosure. So that versatility is there. And once again, you don't have to figure out which system you need, because we do have a design engineering team in Ashland, Ohio that will help you with that. So that's a key part, I believe, of what we do. Working directly with the design professionals that are in the industry with our design engineering team to come up with a solution. Love this video that I'm going to share with you guys real quick here. So take a look at this video.
Proglaze ETA stands for Engineered Transition.
And we talked about having technical difficulties, didn't we?
The connection from the glazing system to the wall where the air barrier is applied.
In most buildings now, there's not just one type of facade on the building. There's lots of different projections, lots of different angles. And so we come up with the different 3D molded corners that may be necessary to make those transitions.
It's made of a kind of a translucent silicone, enabling you to see the amount of sealant to apply the ETA. And the silicone has over 200% elongation, so it's very durable.
It also has ribs in the profile itself, which will prevent too much squeeze out of the sealant. So you're ensuring a good bond with the substrate.
You just got better quality workmanship versus someone just filling a joint with sealant and walking away and not knowing if it's installed, did it bond, did they clean it right. If it does get cut or damaged during construction, cut out the bad area, or it only has a puncture, cut a piece of ETA and just put a tire patch of sealant and gasket over it. And we've tested it in the Instrad. It still does 200% elongation over those tears.
We'll take the shop drawings for a project and we'll really build what ETA system is best suited. And then we'll take those details and actually create a 3D rendering in sequence to show the contractor how to install this ETA system. So engineered transition assembly really defines what we're doing with that. We're specifically engineering these connections for that project.
So perfect entry into our guest that we have today. So that video just went through, I know it's a little choppy, so I apologize for that, but you can check it out on our YouTube channel. It goes through the features and benefits of how this pre-cured solution can really solve a lot of challenges in the field. This was a perfect opportunity for me to reach out to a colleague that I've known for many years in the industry. He works for Gale Associates. He is based in Boston, Massachusetts. And I'd like to welcome Brian Neely to the show.
Hello, Marcy. Hello, Paul.
Welcome, Brian.
Thank you
I'm
for
always
having me.
happy when the guest shows up appropriately. I said, I think one of our first or second broadcasts, I'm like, I really have a, I understand how some people do TV and the challenges that they face with stuff like that. So really happy to have you today as our guest. Appropriate for us to talk about Proglaze ETA and have you on, because I know you've worked with that product for a long time.
I have. I've worked on it for probably, I think you said the product's been out for 10 years. So I was gonna say it's close to 10 to 12 years at least.
Yeah, so it's over 10 years. I've been back for 15, so it's got launched before I came back, so been a long time. So it's got a proven technology, which is great. I know in the beginning, just explaining to people how we were going to solve that industry challenge was a challenge to us. So we really appreciated, industry partners like yourself that really understood the challenge that it was able to solve. So we're excited to have you on, have you talk to us a little bit about your company, and of course, how Proglaze ETA has been able to solve your challenges.
Well, Gale Associates, we architects and engineers specializing in the enclosure, the building enclosure, at least my group is. And as part of that, we're seeing a lot of design reviews and or constructions trying to tie in the air barrier and the curtain wall to provide energy efficiency and to control that disconnect between two different elements. And a lot of times the window systems that we're looking at don't come with an easy method to tie into the air barrier. And that's where a product like this is important, because it provides you with a means to make those connections, especially when they're not self-evident as you might have like with a flanged window.
Absolutely. I love when I looked on your Gale Associates website today, I just wanted to know, like, look at, you should be pretty proud of the best firms for many, many years. You guys got awarded that. So that's pretty impressive to note for your organization, for sure.
Well, we provide engineering services. And so in order to do that, you need to have good, happy staff. And that's what we strive for, is a good working balance between what we're doing and trying to help out the clients and to share the knowledge that we have.
So how have you guys been handling COVID these days? Are you guys back in the office? You're working from home? What are we looking at right there?
Well, this is my office, at least part of it. And I've been back and forth, probably about 50-50 right now. A lot of that has to do with kids. Kids are obviously one of the issues, I think, for working parents is having the kids at home. And right now we are on day 3 of education. So now we are also part teachers. And it's an interesting period of time, but we switch, my wife and I switch back and forth with our different jobs and home education. And other than that, it's different. But in the office, we've been open since I think we shut down for March and most of April. We opened back up in May with some staff in the office and some staff working from home. And it's been picking up slowly as the months kind of tick by. But certainly there are a lot of jobs that were put on hold, and those are starting to come back online now as well. So it's starting to pick up, but still not quite the same as it was, say, March 15th.
Same here. I think we right around that time, a lot of people will start working from home, and the parking lots still remain pretty
sparse.
Yes. Yeah, I know, Paul, you've been coming in here every day. So you've been captain of our ship, coming into the building every day.
It's been easy to find my parking spot.
Yeah, it's easy to spot your car. We just started doing, we've been taking temperatures here, and today was the first time I came in with it, just scanning you and saying, welcome.
Yeah, we have the new automatic electronic system.
Yeah, so it's pretty neat there. So so Brian, I was mentioning to you before we got on air today that some of your colleagues have been through our test facility tour that we did, and it was more than just the test facility. We really liked having the ability to have customers come in. So just to kind of give you a little bit of that background, Paul always made time for those customers. So they came in, say they came in on a Tuesday, they spent a full day out in Medina getting some hands-on training, went out to dinner. The next morning they kicked off with Paul and I and our other colleagues at the test facility at 7:30 in the morning.
Yep. Right and early.
Right and early, and then they spent the rest of the day with us. So we know we've had some of your colleagues through, so we appreciate that. And when things are better, we know we'll have you through here as well.
I'd love to. It's been, I've heard it's a great time, and that everyone found it very educational. It was just, fortunately for me, just bad timing.
Yes. So yeah, we'll definitely have you through there. So this is our ability to connect. So thank you for being able to join us. I know you shared with us some information that you are currently working on a project. So ironically, when I mentioned to you that we were going to be talking about Proglaze ETA, you're like, well, I've got some details that are hot off the presses. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on in these details?
So this is a relatively typical, unfortunately. We're still seeing the same type of problems we were seeing 10, 12 years ago when we started looking at the product. One of the biggest issues is tying in, again, the curtain wall to the surrounding air barrier. And what you see here is we've got a head detail at the bottom left-hand corner, which is more old-fashioned, still very dependable double sealant joint detail. But the architect is starting to use the silicone material on the other details, and the contractor has kind of shown that in their shop drawings as well. But they're not carrying it continuously around the perimeter opening. And so at the top left, which is actually the sill detail, the Proglaze is leaning out over the wall and it's coming back in underneath the lintel, which would work great, except for that at the jamb, they're taking it from the glazing pocket and going back into the opening, and that makes a very difficult corner detail when you have one sheet going into the opening and one coming out of the opening. Typically, we prefer to see everything either in the same plane, so everything on the inside of the roof opening that gets left in place, and then after the window gets installed, you kind of fold it up into the opening, or where you are installing the window system and then flashing into the curtain wall from the perimeter air barrier. So here you're just seeing 3 different methods of tying in the curtain wall, and unfortunately they're on the same opening, and that can become a problem.
So, you know, I hate to put you on the spot here, but how often do you see this kind of challenge in your details? It can't be built as detailed.
Right. Unfortunately, it's probably still 25 to 30% of the time you're still seeing this type of problem where things aren't coordinated between the individual perimeter details of a curtain wall. It's still problematic. There are more and more jobs where you're seeing it consistently detailed, but when you have different elements like these lintels at the head and sill that come out of the opening, it just makes things more complicated. And it just doesn't always get carried through.
It's definitely a sequence of installation challenge, and I know I'm sure we've provided or you've seen some of the animation that we were able to do, and that really kind of helps with that. That's a thing that Paul always likes to mention, how we can put an animation together so we can show that it's either not connecting or that it will connect.
Yeah, and the importance of perhaps starting every day off with your crew to just say, hey, let's review that sequence as a best practice.
Exactly, to make sure we're doing it correctly. I know these are some slides that you were able to share with me, part of your building commissioning classes that you teach regularly. So I know when I was down taking your class in Orlando, Florida, I was pretty excited to see that Proglaze ETA was a main part of your solution. Of course, I think you had to mention it generically in that setting, but I knew that it was our product and I was pretty excited about it. So I think this is just another point that you wanted to bring up of giving options to the end user that aren't functionally equivalent.
Right, so this is it looks like it came from a master specification, and when you dig into the first on the top left-hand corner, it's referring to another specification altogether. So you need to look at the different sets that are combined or interfacing with each other. But more importantly, within this spec itself, it's listing out 3 different products. And while they all perform, you can get a good performance, good air tightness from, they aren't exactly equal, and they're definitely not equal on a price level. And so you've got one that's going to be looking for a spray foam, one that's a modified bitumen membrane, and one that's like the Tremco Proglaze, which is a pre-cured silicone. So making sure that the designer selects out the right system that they want and the one that they're going to show in the details is important. And here, when you give it to the contractor as 3 different options, unfortunately, you lose control of what you're going to get, and a lot of times it's going to go to the one that's going to cost the least amount, whether or not that works best for the project. So it's one of the things we always try to keep an eye on.
And that's a key part of just education, right? So really being able to educate everyone to say, there's options, but those options come with the price, and the price that we're talking about is lack of performance in a lot of instances. Having the ability to have our test facility, and one of the very first walls we tested, Paul, when we transitioned to the Momiko facility, was a stucco wall that had a drip joint in it, and we detailed it all with Proglaze ETA. So it was one of our first walls. So that's where we work together with people like Brian to educate the industry of saying, there's different options, and those options come with performance challenges.
Yeah, like a lot of times we do them side by side so that you can just visually see the difference. Yeah. And then, of course, the testing a lot of times can show you the difference as well.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a key part, I believe, of your communication process. Brian, what do we got going on here?
It is. It's unfortunately sometimes the mock-up is the first time you get to see how something's going together, and all the details start to take form into one specific shape. And so what we saw here is we had already gone through the details. The details had called out for silicone sheet around the perimeter of the opening. Actually had it turning into the glazing pocket with the Proglaze bead. And when we get the shop drawings, that same information kind of got copied onto the shop drawings and came through. What the contractor didn't mark up was that they're actually, what they kind of did, and it was redlined but never really clarified, was that the glazing pocket was going to be closed, and so you couldn't get the silicone membrane into the glazing pocket, and instead you have to turn it onto the side or the face of the curtain wall as it sticks out of the building. But when you get closer into some of these pictures, when the contractor went forward to do the work, they ran into problems where there were projections for a plate at the bottom of the curtain wall that also cut into the silicone membrane. It just became a much more difficult detail to put together because they didn't plan for it appropriately in the beginning of the project, nor did they have those 3D sketches helpful.
Yes. Yeah, so that's definitely that evolution of making sure we have that communication, shop drawings to the animation so that we can make sure we have the proper detailing. So overall, I think there are still some challenges you faced, and this just goes into a greater detail of it, I believe.
It's hard to see on the left-hand side, but that piece of aluminum pocket filler is part of the frame. He also didn't miter the corner very well here, but with that pocket filler being closed, you couldn't take the silicone membrane from the face of the wall and the air barrier straight into the pocket. And so when you click on the next picture, you'll see that what we have here is kind of a prefabbed corner that they made themselves, turning it onto the face of the aluminum, and then trying to notch out and work around this projected attachment plate became very, very sealant dependent. And we had some concerns the first time we were on site, and so we postponed testing till we came back a second time to take a look at it. They had remedied a couple of the conditions, but basically had to add more sealant as well. And so running through the tests, the system didn't work. And that's because of the way that they had tied in those corner details. And so they had to go back to the drafting board, and that's where we got Tremco's field representatives involved in coming out to assist the contractor with coming up with detailing.
I believe this is another shot of it, but we'll get to the recommendation here shortly.
That's the point where where we had the failures. You can see the membrane's been sliced to work around the membrane, and it's very difficult to get those type of shapes to work properly. And so when you go to the next one, I think we start to see some of the manufacturer provided details on how the system should be installed and how you terminate it to the frame. So this is the
couple of these here.
The jam detail.
Well, and I think that's the key part of it. I mean, I can't imagine having to detail that picture with those other options. The other options were a rubberized piece of membrane or spray foam. So all of those would have had even more challenges than the Proglaze ETA. But the beauty of the experience that we've had is that we've been able to come up with solutions like this. So instead of manipulating it in the field, we've got pre-molded corners.
And when the molded corners can be used, it's very helpful because it takes that workmanship at the corner away. And now you're just dealing with the lapping joints, and you're not at the corner, but you're in the middle of a field somewhere. And it's a much simpler detail and takes less workmanship to put that together well, because at that point you got just two sheets that are overlapping over via sealant and being rolled.
I was going to say, Brian, one of the things we always like to say is we try to eliminate decision making in the field.
Yeah.
And this certainly does that.
Yeah. Well, and I always like to look at it, there's so many different types of technologies out there, and I always like to look at it from the points of concern, right? So you could do a lot of different things with these connections, but how many points of concern do you have? They keep going up, right? So having this kind of pre-cured membrane and having inside and outside corners, those points of concerns are lessened, which is great. So we like that for sure, that capability. And this just further shows how that detail would look with that molded corner being used to make that transition.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have a few more examples. I know this was part of your training, so you'd like to include that information. And I'm very excited about all the different types of technical information that is available to our customers to use. And as you mentioned, Brian, when you had that issue in the field, obviously, I'm assuming you reached out to your Tremco sales rep. Do we need to give him a shout out right now?
We could. We worked with Tony on this. He was very helpful in putting together those sketches for us. A lot of times when we're doing the commissioning work, we're not specifically providing details. And so that's where it's important to be able to grab some manufacturer information and kind of relay that to the contractor and the architect who needs to come up with the design details. But we're just trying to make sure that they're all heading in the right direction and that we're getting the right product and performance at the end. But no, Tony Hayes did a great job. It's always easy to reach, and helps out with these cases whenever we need that assistance.
Paul always likes to say belly to belly.
Yes, that's what built the company starting in 1928, Marcy. And even though we're I guess socially disconnected, I mean, it's interesting. I pretty much approve all the travel right now, and all the travels for technical field support. That's pretty much all the travel we do. Still have to do it today, right? Got to get on the job.
Got to get on the job. So it's a key part of it. So Tony Hayes obviously is a key component of the detailing and of the servicing of that region, and that's regional specific needs. And then he's got the ability to reach back to the technical counterparts here in Cleveland and in Ashland, Ohio, to provide these solutions. So we're pretty excited about that whole way to service the customer through. I think there's a few more pictures here just showing how this solution can solve a variety of applications.
So this picture is from probably 2008 or 2009. It's a chemistry lab, so it must have been one of the earlier uses of the material. But here the contractor's basically keeping just ahead of the mason as the mason's trying to move up his brick wall. So they're going in there the day or 2 days before, trying to carry the transition membranes up onto the curtain wall. The curtain wall itself wasn't quite ready yet either. You can see that it's still being glazed as they move forward. So they really were, right on top of each other's heels as this job went forward.
Yeah, sequence of installation, that certainly can solve a lot of those, but we definitely want to have communication ahead of time, because what we don't end up seeing generally when we're looking at details is what it can look like when it all comes together in the field. Once again, I can't imagine those other technologies even trying to compete with that, but at least we know with that pre-cured extrusion being able to elongate 200%, we're going to have a much better fighting chance to make sure that we get that detailed properly.
This is what happens when the mason's ready to go. He leaves a little window there for you to get your silicone membrane into. At the same point, the curtain wall had to be reset, and so they couldn't turn the membrane into the curtain wall. So it was one kind of error after another. But with the limited access there, they were able to get the silicone into the glazing pocket when the window was finally ready and to tie it back into the air barrier membrane. One thing they need to be careful of, though, is fasteners. When this material is installed beforehand and the curtain wall installation occurs afterwards, those fasteners can penetrate the membrane, and that needs to be clearly coordinated so that it happens through the silicone sealant and not necessarily just through plain silicone. We'll probably get to that later. Yeah, that's the one there.
I zoomed ahead for the essence of time and because it made sense. So absolutely, we always make sure that we coordinate and try to explain. If you're going to fasten through the silicone sealant and not the membrane itself, right. So that we've got that solution. So Brian, just want to really thank you so much for being able to join us today on Tremco Live, coming in here and showing us your projects, talking to us about Proglaze ETA. I really hope to be able to come to see you soon, but until then, I know you're in good hands with Tony Hayes and Kevin Rooney, so gotcha.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
See you next time you're in the area, Marcy.
Yes, thanks.
All right, bye.
Bye. So Paul, I'm really excited having Brian on the show and just being able to talk about Proglaze ETA. I wanted to close with some more information about Proglaze ETA, just to kind of reiterate that, because it's pretty exciting information to know. We talked about it with Brian, you and I've mentioned it, but that ability to be able to withstand air leakage, that's huge. So that flexibility, that bonding capability, that's that first picture we have there. The next one is structural wind loads. So amazing, the capability there, right? That flexibility to be able to handle that. We mentioned seismic damage and then the wind-driven rain. So that's really, I believe, we had our air leakage testing down in Ashland, Ohio, but we couldn't do the water testing. And that's why we moved it here to Amico. And our very first test is what you can see there in that bottom window.
Yeah, it's really, it's a remarkable product because it, there's really nothing it can't do.
Exactly, I
And
know.
the fact that we can, I think, we continue to customize shapes and geometries, really working with the same base technology. We got a great support team for it in terms of doing all the engineering
Absolutely.
behind the scene. So I think it's, even though it's, I guess we guessed 15 years old.
Yep, I'd say
It's
at
a
least
young,
15.
it's a
yeah.
young 15. I think it's still got quite the development future ahead of it.
Well, and I think we've talked many times about that by others, and if you looked closely on some of the detailing that Brian shared, it said connection by others.
Yeah.
And that's where I think this comes into play for sure. The picture on your right-hand side there on the screen on your slides is a mock-up that we did for a seismic drip joint for a project in San Francisco for Northern California. It had Tremco Proglaze ETA, it had our extra air barrier membranes, and a really pesky quality control manager was involved on this job. And our technical sales reps were like, oh, he's a pain in the butt. Marcy, you got to come out here and help us with this guy. And that's when I met Brian Stroik. And I always love telling that story because he was dedicated to quality control for the company he worked for. Proglaze ETA and our XOR line was a perfect, I mean, for him to be able to engage in it, he knew what quality looked like. And that's why he loved Proglaze ETA. And now works for Tremco. So I always love telling that story of how Brian and I met. And now I get to work with him every day. So it's a fun story brought together, you know, by that Proglaze ETA and how it solved a lot of problems on the projects he worked on. But I always like to close, you know, we thanked Brian for joining us. Next week, Paul, we've got the project profile of Bank of America.
Love that project. Every time I see it, I get little goosebumps.
I know. It's a pretty cool one to talk about.
It's a cool story.
It is.
I look forward to sharing that next week.
It'll be fun to share, and we'll round out our glazing month because we talked about a variety of different glazing solutions, and this is just one more glazing solution. So pretty excited about that. Once again, Tremco Live, if you have ideas for content, please share them with me. Continue to share them with me. My email is down at the bottom. October is going to be focused all on stadiums and arenas. I promised you I'd bring you that.
Yeah, we're getting people into stadiums. There was, I think, 6,000 people in Brown Stadium.
For the Cleveland Browns win. Cleveland Browns win. We used to be excited about first down, you know, and now we're excited because we won. So it was fun times. And then November, we're going to do healthcare. So if you guys got ideas, customers, if you've got design challenges that you were able to solve, bring them to me. And of course, we've got our virtual tours in action. So obviously, we do Tremco Live every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, but we do have virtual tours. We can do them for your association. We can do them for your firm. They're very customizable. And of course, we can include continuing education credits. And that's all I have today, Paul. So we can end it there and thank everybody for joining us on Tremco Live.
We'll see you next week. Be safe.
Thanks.